Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the More Than May podcast. My name is Jake Langdon.
And I'm Alan Langdon.
And we just came off a pretty interesting Road America race, if I do say so myself. Finally, kind of a surprising winner from the more mid-pack range and some classic IndyCar road street racing. So I was pretty impressed. Of course, Christian Lundgaard coming from behind after the lap one incident with Scott Dixon all the way to the win. So, Alan, what are your thoughts on the weekend?
Likewise, I think it was a good mix of different strategies, a bit of chaos, but also a good chunk of clean racing and some talented battles. And you mentioned throughout the race, you had at least 8 guys that looked like they had a legitimate chance, whether it was mechanical boogeymen or different strategies or penalties or just poor timing on pit stops. But ultimately, Lundgaard had quite the story, basically effectively coming from the last spot to the first stop, one of the first laps.
Yeah, I mean, you think about Dixon in 2023 when he got wrecked at the GMR Grand Prix that we went to, and then also Ericsson when he got wrecked. That was, I think, was that early in the race too? It was very similar to this where you had to get the wing replacement.
Yeah, I mean, those crash
at Nashville.
Were just, the old crashable street course. You probably had a dozen cautions. So what time and place, but
pretty unlikely, but not unheard of, I guess I would say. And just kind of starting at the start of the weekend, of course, Alex Palou picking up his 5th straight pole. The fact that he's only gotten 2 wins out of those 5 poles is beyond me, because this actually ties him with Alex Zanardi, who was the last person to do this back in 97 when we still had the split. So the fact that he's doing this in a fully unified series, I mean, it's just unheard of. So it's just another great performance by him. I mean, just pretty clearly at least half a second faster than everybody. He's comfortably been on pole at a lot of these races. So just unbelievable.
Yeah, it wasn't aggressive as, I guess, Gateway in terms of multiple miles per hour. It was certainly a comfortable margin there. I think beyond that, quals and practice are pretty quiet with the exception of a Stingray wreck. So a nice little shout out there for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, everyone else is fighting for scraps when he's, Palou's all the way up there. Malukas started in second. It's just pretty typical qualifying. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Armstrong, unfortunately for him, he started all the way in third and looked like he was going to win. And then, nothing too surprising. I think some of our favorites from last week, McLaughlin and Rosenqvist, were up there, and unfortunately neither of them were able to convert because of both strategy and driving issues. The overcut, as we'll talk about, again getting screwed. But kind of getting into the race itself. Lap 1, turn 1, of course. That long straight. I mean, longest straight, front straight, I think, on any course that we run, obviously being the longest course on the series right now. And Scott Dixon was essentially kind of coming to the outside lane there ahead of Lundgaard. And I guess Lundgaard, got a little too close. You kind of lose that, you lose your downforce and ram right into him and broke the right side, I believe it was, of his wing, or the left side. Maybe it's the left side. Either way, on his front wing, just completely totaled. So he nursed it around in the back of the pack, did 2 laps to get the tire satisfaction in. Or I guess he only did 1 because he ended up running blacks later on. But he nursed it back to the pits, was able to replace it and stay. That's the thing about this Road America. It's so long, you can stay on the lead lap, even with a wing change if you're quick enough. And was able to just be pretty conservative from there with this overcut. And,
it kind of reminds me. It wasn't one we attended, but 2 years ago, a little known name when we talk about quite a bit. Lundqvist actually had pole at this track and ended up getting punted. Where you see this exact race where a long straight in an initial corner, you get a lot of guys bunched up, and if you break too early, or the other guy behind you lose any sort of traction, you can easily spin out, or in Lundgaard's case, basically have his front wing puncture his tire. So it's not to say it's chaotic as a street course, but certainly this turn can breed a lot of cautions and incidents.
Yeah, and really, I mean, the race stayed mostly clean after that. There's some definitely elbows out, but you're just going all the way to lap 14 after the first stop. Roman Grosjean, one of his rear tire changers just completely didn't get the nut on, and you could tell right away because Hauger was right behind him, and he just darts to the outside right when they get to the pit exit, and almost what takes out, was it Power and
someone else,
maybe Rasmussen. Yeah, and it was pretty sketchy, but honestly, like, everyone came out all right somehow, except for about halfway down the road, Rosenqvist, or halfway down the lap, Grosjean, just the tire completely fell out. He spun out and ended up having to bring it all the way back with 3 tires, ruining the floor on that thing, I'm sure, but still able to put it. Where did he end up finishing at? He finished ahead of Hauger somehow. I don't know what happened to Hauger, but he finished in 16th. So, I mean, starting in 14th, finishing in 16th when you don't get your tire on right, pretty commendable performance there.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre. You said it was in turn 5. I mean, it must have been the way that the track set up. Like, he didn't put a lot of pressure on that tire until that left-hander going up the hill. But yeah, effectively, like, he turned and the tire just stayed where it was. And you could see on the broadcast the wheel nut clearly separate from the tire. Because again, typically, if the tire's severed, there's a tether that keeps it together. But when there's no wheel nut that's fully screwed in, the whole process kind of falls apart. So yeah, like, luckily it was in a spot where there's a large gravel runoff on that turn, so no injury or really any contact with the tire. But certainly a bizarre sight to see. It kind of reminds me of the same turn last year where Connor Daly was in the gravel trap and needed to get rescued by the safety team, but didn't give enough time for his tether to be removed, a toe link, and ended up dragging that around for a lap, which was fairly amusing.
Yeah. And what this kind of led to was just a plethora of people coming for fuel-only stops, trying, because those long laps, you kind of try to get as much fuel save as you can, especially for this overcut that a lot of guys tried. But fortunately, that was to no avail. So leading to our next incident. So lap 30, Rasmussen had a hybrid failure. I mean, ECR has just been cursed. They literally announced this week that they lowered the amount of hybrid power on these things to kind of essentially neuter the thing to where it's useless almost, but at the same time make sure it doesn't fail. And then the same week you're going to have it fail again. So just really, really unfortunate for Rasmussen, who's facing just another mechanical failure. ECR as a whole, it's just week after week after week of this, and it's relentless. Like, I don't know how they're gonna get. I mean, eventually they're gonna have to get through this, but just like, it's just making it very hard for someone fighting for the leader circle to compete.
Yeah, I mean, I think I may be correct, but I think 4 of the last 5 races, the Indy GP, Rossi putted out, the 500, Rossi's car caught on fire, and Ras
had mechanical failure, yeah. And then
Detroit, I think they were both.
Ras wrecked himself, but that wasn't mechanical.
Okay, and then Gateway, one of them, I think Rossi, retired for mechanical.
And then Ras got on the podium.
So they got 4 of the last 5.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of folks have been affected by the hybrid, but they have been disproportionately affected.
Well, at the Indy GP, they had trouble, obviously, as you mentioned. But yeah, I think they both DNF'd with mechanical issues at Indy GP, because I remember Rasmussen, he wrecked into the grass because his rear brakes went out. But just, I don't know what to say. Like, how do you keep having all these issues? The hybrid, we are coming on to the 3rd season, the 2nd year anniversary of it here at Mid-Ohio. And I mean, there's not a good thing you can say about it. I mean, the only thing I thought that it's added is been the Indy 500 qualifying. Literally the only thing that I think it's added to the sport. And it's just, we try not to waste our breath on it too much, because I think it's kind of exhausting. But I mean, it's just like, there's not much to say except for, it's like, there's no reason for it to be on the car anymore except for advertising.
Yeah. I think one thing to mention here, I think beyond just the wreck itself, there are a lot of implications of this, as you kind of alluded with the overcut. So Palou had actually pitted a lap or 2 before this incident in kind of protection or preparation against the potential. At this point, with the lap 14 caution, Rosenqvist was ahead of Palou and holding a steady half a second to a second lead. So Palou, again, with an alternate strategy, dove in first and looked to be the right move, except he ended up having a pit lane speeding penalty, which, shocker there, really opened up the track for an opportunity. But unfortunately, Rosenqvist and among other drivers stayed out a little bit too late, and with that overcut got punished brutally, sent him way back in the field and really ultimately ended his day, unfortunately. So really poorly timed caution there with the last season, which again was just purely engine. And almost with the Palou narrative this year, kind of feels like there's an evil ray in the box there that magically put Palou back in contention after that penalty. But
yeah, poor Palou. He ended his day. He finished P4. I mean, it's just insane to me. His bad days are most drivers' good days. I mean, you think about guys like I'm looking down the board and Kirkwood finished 11th. I mean, that's a bad day. When you talk about championship level guys that are typically up there, even normally across the years and years of the championship competitions, like P11 was about like, you got to be in the top 10. And yet you still have Palou after all this. You have two of your biggest contenders in Lundgaard and Malukas, 1 and 2. And despite the penalty and all of this stuff, like you're still going to finish P4. I guess, are these the official? I guess I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out power.
Will Power, yeah.
Yeah, there's still on here. Will Power's P5, but let me see. That's the thing is the whole Will Power controversy, as we'll get to, but the results. Let me see if the results are final now. But anyway, yeah, he finished P5, and at the end, like after all that, he still has a 60-point lead. It's just like you're just
grown 2 or 6. I think it was 54 last week, so back above a single win.
Well, yeah, it's because one of the drivers, Lundgaard does well 1 week, and then it looks like Power is the official 3rd place finisher, but like Lundgaard does well 1 week, and then Malukas does the other, and then the Kirkwood does the other, and it's like combined they all do well, but it's just they compete against each other too much to get by Palou.
So that moves on to lap 34. So basically the restart following the rashes in yellow. A lot of cars, a lot of elbows out, as you mentioned, not a lot of penalties, but I think one notable comment on this before the next caution was Ericsson trying to make a very aggressive move in turn 5 on the outside of Grosjean, which is one of those guys I don't think anyone wants to mess with or try to battle in that corner. And unfortunately, Ericsson was treated poorly and bounced off him, and then a couple other drivers, I think, dropped nearly 4 or 5 spots right after that. And I think going down the kink, Rosenqvist had a similar idea to make an aggressive move, and then also lost some traction in track spots. So just a whole lot of cars bumping, which looked to be a disaster. But before anything got too out of hand around Canada, there was some debris that was on the track big enough to warrant a second yellow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looked like a part, some part of his wing or something came off, just a piece of carbon fiber right on the outside of the racing line. So made sense, but yeah, you do not want to test Grosjean. Like it's just
so definitely a handful of guys that say like Ferrucci, Ras.
Yeah, Ferrucci, Ras, Grosjean are definitely the top 3. Just do not try to get by those guys. And he paid the price for it. And it's unfortunate because he looked really strong. I thought he qualified P5, and I mean some of the best racing he's had pace wise. Since he's been at Andretti, and of course he's fighting for his seat, and I think he's slowly getting back into the favor of Andretti after taking him so long, and he's even admitted like he feels the most comfortable he's felt since he joined the team. So I'm really interested to follow that as the season goes on, as we'll get into our silly season segment later on this episode. But moving on to the final incident that kind of led to what was a very, very, very improbable victory, which was Armstrong, his engine failing up about a second and a quarter, maybe like 1.2 seconds on Lundgaard with, 3-4 laps to go. Just horrible. You feel so bad for the guy. I mean,
literally zero career wins, and he's just a few laps of just finishing away to do it. Now, mind you, we said Lundgaard was catching and actually had the session fastest lap right before that. So was on rails, but I think with how big that track was, he would have needed a miracle to get to Armstrong and then pass after that.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the newer tire, and he's on the reds, so he obviously was going to have pace, but I think it was around 8 laps is when they started to turn over, where the blacks start to become better. So with him having the 3 extra laps life on it, it would have been a very interesting crossover point, because both of them would be kind of about the same, and it would have taken a lot of racecraft without a lot of push to pass left to really get by him. So I was I was kind of felt like we got cheated in a little bit. Like I was like,
Hmm.
dang, we really could have gotten a good finish out of that, but it was still pretty crazy. It was a lot of drama to get there. But yeah, Lundgaard. Yeah, I mean, it's just I joke with you because it's just like you think, oh, this is gonna be the race that we have a new winner. And every single time you end up with one of these former winners pulling it off again. It was the same thing with Lundgaard passing Malukas at the Indy GP, and now him stealing away this win with Armstrong. At all these ovals too. I just don't know how the repeat winner like this year we have not had. I mean, obviously Rosenqvist hasn't won in a long time, but he still has won. And we haven't had a new winner. We've only had one new winner in the last 2 seasons. Like, how is that possible?
Which is funny. I think there was a streak when we first started the pod, but like we had 7 or 8 new winners in a row. There's been a certain changing of the guard now where you've got a lot of drivers who are in their sophomore, junior, senior year that are really kind of becoming staples. And for the young talent that we have, they're still kind of getting into that phase. And Armstrong and Lucas both have been knocking on the door for a first win, but haven't put it away fully. Which poor Lucas made like 5 or 6 runner-ups this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
just
he posted something on his Twitter. I'll put up now of him saying, when you're in a finishing in second place competition and your opponent is, and he put a photo of himself like up, just like this guy just
Yeah, he's making jokes of it, but it's got to be painful. I mean, he's second in the standings now too on points showing how many podiums he's had this year. But I guarantee he'd trade any of those for a win, especially obviously the big one earlier this May.
I mean, he's been handing it to his teammates. For someone that I think that we were a little bit apprehensive about joining the team in the state that it was, I mean, compared to Will Power, compared to Scott McLaughlin, compared to Joseph Newgarden, I mean, I think he's outperformed his teammates in every race but like one or two. I just like it's absurd how consistent he's been and really showing that he is right now a championship contender and he will continue to be. And was a very smart choice. And you look at McLaren and you're just
that's
really
terrible.
Yeah.
Aged like milk on that one. But I think closing out the race here, so as you can imagine, with a couple laps to go and how long that track is, they're easily able to clean up and do a restart, which restarts with 1 lap to go usually create some chaos and bumping. So it was fairly modest up until Canada corner where Rahal, who had miraculously put himself in contention for a podium, was battling Will Power, who had a bit more push to pass and was really trying to wedge in one of the last corners you could theoretically pass on with that big straight.
Yeah, that was where we sat last year, actually, and it's a heavy braking zone, and a lot of guys are nursing pretty old tires at that point. I know Lundgaard, they posted on Instagram his tires, and those things were beat, and he was the last one to pit, and yeah, you definitely, he got past because he went out wide on turn 1 or 2 somewhere early on in the track, and obviously he's fighting for a podium, so he's trying to make a pass, pretty low percentage pass on the outside of that. Is that Canada corner there right off the kink, and it's just pretty much dumped Rahal, and Rahal obviously very not pleased with that move, and I think in a lot of ways I was a little surprised there wasn't a penalty. I think that post-race penalties are pretty rare in IndyCar when it comes to like on-track incidents, but it was definitely something warranted in that case. But Power kind of got away with one. It was just one of those things where you see this, so many incidents happen in IndyCar where one guy is just braking too early in the braking zone, the other guy kind of dumps him. And the one thing I will say is that Rahal admitted that he was trying to block him. So I think he knew that Power would have had a better run on him. So, you can debate back and forth. I guess I would just lean on the side of racing incident just because of that. Like it felt like it wasn't like he just completely dumped him, like, shoehorned him like he did what was that last year at Detroit when he was messing around with that one. Well, I forget what driver he did that to, but yeah. What were your thoughts, Alan? I say racing incident.
Agreed. I think you look by the letter, like technically Power's front wing was inching slightly in line with Rahal's rear tire. So there was like the millimeter of like gap there. And I think Rahal definitely took a wider than normal line and did shift a bit out. I think power, most drivers 9 times out of 10, they're going to break or at least lift and let that move, knowing that there's no chance in the world that he's going to make that turn. Now we had this discussion at the 500 with Armstrong, like, do you lift or do you take out Rosenqvist and try to fight for the win yourself? So I think it's two examples of like what can happen in either scenario. And in this case, Power wasn't punished and in fact might have been rewarded with a podium. So it sucks, but that is part of racing.
Yeah, and obviously a much needed good day with Power after just, I mean, if that would have, he got penalized there, I mean, it would just been another added to the list of blunders and unforced errors and just unlucky issues with him. So interesting to see him kind of get back into the swing of things, and wonder if that'll lead to good things to come. We'll see there for sure. I think, let me look back. You had our picks last week. Kirkwood. I had Power as my favorite, and then I had whatever. You had I had McLaughlin as my underdog, and then you had Kirkwood and Rosenqvist.
Yeah.
So fair enough. Losers again. We can't predict them all.
I think we've only gotten one this season, which was my Lundgaard.
Yeah, your Lundgaard. I think you had your Lundgaard.
When you can't choose, but again, I think
you almost had Malukas in the 500. You were inches away.
I was inches. And we can't choose Palou, so that kind of eliminates.
Was it 4 races this year? Yeah, but just kind of looking at the race winning strategy, he pulled off the 4-stopper, which I don't think that was in the cards. Yeah, it's a pretty unlikely strategy, but it really did work as a strategy. I think, if you come in, if someone else with that kind of pace would have come in after lap 1, and then with the amount of yellows we had, come out and be as aggressive as he, someone on a clean track. Lundgaard's one of the best drivers on a clean track and race pace in the series, as you could see, made up so much time during that third or that 4th stint, and then this 5th stint just completely took over. He got by or whatever. He came out ahead of Malukas, and then Malukas made that crazy pass on the outside, which he said was unintentional, into the grass, and was able to hold on to it. And then obviously, as the red tires came up to heat, Lundgaard was able to get by Malukas and start hawking down Armstrong. So yeah, I thought, I mean, to do what he did with, it wouldn't have been easy. A lot of guys down the line would not have been able to keep up the pace. Maybe could have scrapped together a top 5 or so, but it was funny to see the broadcasters, especially since I already knew who won, because I was watching the recording, start to kind of be like, oh, he could come out in the top 3. Oh, maybe he might be in the lead. He might be in contention for a podium. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, it looks like he's going to win. So it all kind of came together quickly. But overall, I thought that was an A- race. I thought that was about as good as you're going to get from Road America in the hybrid era. And it was fun to see a lot of different faces at the front there.
Yeah, I think the only thing that could have been better was just an actual battle with Lundgaard and Armstrong. But beyond that, you still had a lot to talk about. I think some fast facts for the race as well. So we had a total of 6 lead changes among 5 drivers. Again, the best lap was Lundgaard chasing down Armstrong back on lap 50. Rossi, with Ras retiring, ended up with most improved plus 20 positions. Started 25th and finished 6th, so that's a good.
Good for Rossi, man.
Good stroke of luck for ECR one time there, and then I think a funny thing about this track is that we had 240 passes, and all were for position. As Jake mentioned, the track is 4 miles plus long, so in reality, you can really pit and get back on track and not have to deal with those passes in pit lane. So I thought it was a funny little bit where the number is pretty much the same because it's hard to do otherwise.
Yeah, just to give you an idea of the fastest lap, so that was a 1:45.56, and he qualified at a 1:44.2. Like that's badass, but yeah, he definitely brought some pace. But other shout outs, just down the line, Newgarden, obviously not our favorite, but to go, put it in 9th from kind of what he's doing with the ankle and everything, still respectable. Kiffin Simpson, close to being a podium, right? Was that where you're going?
I was gonna add too. Like, I mean, it wasn't the Russells didn't match up, but Kyle Collette qualified really well and had pace. I think just got caught in the wrong strategies. So I think he's continuing to look better and better in each race. I hope that he'll maybe sneak in a top 10 here later in the year, but showing progress for sure.
Yeah, and then I'd just say Ferrucci a little bit more pace, 10th here. AJ Foyt was decent here. They seem to have some sort of pace. I know he was finished third here last year, but yeah, pretty typical top 10 when it comes to the names you're seeing there. So nothing too out of the ordinary for whatever reason. What do you call it? Hauger had some issues, and rookie wise, there wasn't much to write home about. So that is Road America. So great race. Excited. Obviously missed being there. Had a great time last year. So definitely recommend making it out there if you get the chance. So with that, I want to dive into our first silly season segment of the year. So silly season this year, I think we were starting to believe that it was going to be kind of calm. And then since the Indy 500 rolled around, it's kind of opened up. I think Rosenqvist doing what he did has really opened up a lot of things because of his potential movement into what Marshall Pruitt has reported, either Andretti or McLaren. So I guess we can start there. The merits of either of those. So Andretti, he would take that 28 seat and come into a team that has been very strong on street and road courses and all right on ovals. I mean, obviously Ericsson put it in second 2 years ago at the Indy 500 before being disqualified. Kirkwood has won at Gateway, but compared to, I would say, the Ganassi program, a step behind. But it sounds like he had an offer on the table that matched whichever, I think it was that Meyershank tried to match whatever his best offer was between the two teams. And it sounds like he's going to not take it. So my thing is with McLaren is he used to drive there in the number 7 car and really never had much success. I mean, not even quite as good as he's done now. I think his best success consistently was with Ganassi, and then the last few races here have definitely been strong for him at times. So you go back into that team, which is a little bit more of a circus. He's when we talked to that spot, one of his old strategists, he said he just likes to be calm, go about his business. He's your classic IndyCar driver. Just get me in the car and no bullshit. And I think that he's kind of he's having a hard time. I think he might have a hard time going back there and having success especially with how much talent there is around him now.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's just too awkward as well. I mean, you have a team that actively cut you, and then now they're wanting you back. It's a weird relationship dynamic with some toxicity there. But yeah, I mean, it just shows how important and meaningful the 500 can be for your career. I mean, you mentioned Ericsson's shown pieces of improvement, but this late in the season, I think there'd be more confidence, or not enough confidence, to sign a deal. Now, I think you say that I wouldn't consider Rosenqvist a young enough becoming talent. I think he's a veteran, but just has both within qualifying and on race has improved a lot. So interesting to see how that comes out.
Yeah, I just find it kind of odd that you would replace a Swedish driver with 11 podiums, an Indy 500 win, and I think 4 other wins in Marcus Ericsson with a Swedish Indy 500 winner with 1 other win, who is just kind of the shiny guy in the moment, especially with that team just bringing in Power, potentially bringing in a rookie here soon. It just seems like a lot of moving parts for someone that's, I think, not that much better than the alternative, which is Marcus Ericsson. So if I were the teams, I would say McLaren, I would be more enticed with signing Rosenqvist. But if I were Rosenqvist, I think I would rather go to Andretti. So it's kind of a tough I think on both sides you can argue, but it is, at the end of the day, it's like to leave a Ganassi partnered car after seeming to find your pace more and more here, it's going to be an interesting decision. And someone who's struggled with these moves in the past, I wonder how this will affect him long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of times both Ericsson and Power and Rossi. I mean, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Where guys that make either lateral or what seems to be an improvement move and just can't gel with the team right or getting used to the car and end up really suffering on performance. So there is no guarantees. And you said Meyershank, I think that team's really found their stride in being a competitive both qualifying and on race pace. So I think they really put themselves up there as a top 3-4 team. So it's kind of hard to give up on that for something that's a bit more uncertain.
Mm-hmm. And then just going team by team. So obviously McLaren is the next one, or the first one I want to look at, and that has to do mostly with Nolan Siegel, who sounds like his time is come to a close with McLaren. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get booted during the season, which, with the new charter rules and everything, it just seems to be a little bit less likely. But he just hasn't really had it. And, he got dumped. He looked like he qualified well. He looked like he was going to have another good day here. And, he's had some decent days, and then he gets dumped on the last lap. And I'm just like, it's kind of just like at a certain point, you're like, is it really someone else's fault, or is he just braking way too early, or is he coming off too slow? Like, he seems to just have these moments that make it very hard for him to be consistent. So, yeah,
especially too when you got a Ward who's always competitive and a talented driver, and then Lundgaard who already has 2 wins this year. I mean, as your peers, it's really hard to not produce similar and be against that when that's the benchmark. So certainly some tension there. I think outside of that, I think Ward's on a contract year next year, but it's reported that McLaren has basically a counteroffer clause. So I think it would take just about anything to get him away from McLaren just because of how valuable he is, both I think from a fan favorite perspective, but also too as a talented driver.
And I think institutionally he's become pretty integral. And that's another thing, is that him and Rosenqvist are so close that you wonder if the reunion there would be more likely because of that. But yeah, I think he really has been the face of McLaren, despite other guys maybe performing better in moments, which really only is Lundgaard. But still, like, I think when you think McLaren, you still think of Ward. So, yeah. So anyway, looking at Meyershank outside of Fro, who sounds like he's not coming back anymore. Armstrong, his name has kind of been thrown up and down. I think after this weekend, he's going to be. I think they're going to want to keep him. I would want to keep him. I think that he obviously offers that stability, and he can be the head of that team. And he's someone that I think we've been higher on, and he's had his ups and downs. Hasn't quite learned the ovals because found the pace on them as well as we thought. But at the end of the day, he could have won the 8,500 this year. So what am I really saying? So I think that he's continued to grow, and he's still, I think he's around my age, 23, 24 years old. So I think that they should keep him pretty obviously. And then moving down, what you got anything?
I was gonna say, I think if Rosenqvist just leave that seat, I think with the partnership with Ganassi, you're gonna see a young talent, whether it's a Formula 2 guy or any next champion in that spot to see. I mean, Dixon's getting older, so there's gonna be a potential fairly soon for the next Alex Palou and Team Ganassi.
Yeah, and we'll get to maybe who can fill these seats after we kind of see who's maybe leaving first. So with that, we got Meyershank, McLaren, Andretti, Power, and Kirkwood are obviously staying put. Then JHR, Juncos, Hollinger. It sounds like Hollinger is gonna buy out Juncos, or there's gonna be some sort of break. So there's a lot of dynamics there that are very interesting when it comes to what this team is going to look like next year. Obviously, they used to have that partnership with McLaren, and that fell apart with Canapino, and Juncos is more aligned with him because of their Argentinian ethnicity and all of that. So I wonder, this is going to be something more interesting to watch, and it's something I can't really fully understand, like the implications of it being, but I know that this is kind of where the Dreyer and Reinbold, obviously Dennis Reinbold, God rest his soul, passed away last week after his fight with cancer. They've still, they knew, unfortunately, they had prepared for him passing, and they still do want to join a full-time IndyCar team, and I think this has kind of been their through line for that. So
yeah, I mean, I think you've seen the success that Foyt and Meyershank have had with these partnerships. I mean, both Foyt's qualifying in the Fast 12 and Meyershank having multiple Fast 12 this year. So clearly there is some benefit to that. And Juncos also being a Chevy team is a natural play with McLaren.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think VK, obviously, If he has a contract to stay, he probably, I mean, I don't see him leaving, but with some of these other seats coming open potentially, that could be somewhere. Like, he's continued to show that this guy can, he can be a race winner in the right car, and
Yeah, I think he's
an
certainly
Indy 500 winner as well.
Yeah, I think he's certainly overdriving the current Kumko's car. So there's certainly some intention. He's still fairly young. I mean, it was a surprise already that he wasn't getting higher seats, but I think he's certainly a worthwhile guy to invest in.
Yeah, and then Stingray, if the money's green, right? I mean, that's kind of in the same situation as Siegel, where he's pretty clearly played out his, we know what he is. Like, yeah. And then looking at Foyt, Ferrucci, the pressure is starting to get on him with, when you have this partnership with Penske, they're expecting, we got to get something out of these guys. And now with Malukas being as good as he is on ovals and Newgarden, it's like they're not really getting a lot of knowledge from that side, which is where Ferrucci is the strongest. And, he throws together a few good road and street results here and there. I'm not going to say he's horrendous on them, but not enough to really put anywhere towards consistent podiums or even competing for wins. So there's a lot more pressure there, especially with a lot of younger guys potentially coming up and filling a spot here in a few years, as both Newgarden, I think he's 35 now, and then McLaughlin's not too far behind him. He's probably 33. So you know how they are. They put a lot of pressure on their guys in that building. So.
There's no there's no shortage of Penske's getting cut before. It's the Patriots type where they don't mess around with letting these guys age gracefully or retire with a Penske name. They mean business. So I think on the flip side, if you're Penske, like, those seats are really coveted as opportunities to develop young talent and keep building that pipeline. So it's hard to see Ferrucci at this point, similar to Siegel and Rob. Like, I don't think his ceiling is a Penske, so it's kind of where does he fit in that puzzle. I think on the flip side, you've got Collette, which we discussed. He's only rookie season and hasn't had the best season, but has really started to show a bit of a spark in terms of what his raw racing ability is. And supposedly he's got some money to back him from a sponsorship standpoint, which makes that even more of a lucrative deal.
Yeah, I think the Brazilian descent definitely doesn't hurt him. There seems to be still a pretty strong fan base there through, obviously we've had so many great Brazilian drivers through the years. And, the Fittipaldis, you have Castro Neves, and there's actually Fittipaldi in F2 right now, or in Indy Next right now. So, Collette, I like we said, he's had, it's been rough for him because I think in Indy you qualify well, you wreck out. You have your engine blow up at Gateway after putting together a top 5 performance. And then this weekend, also a lot of pace. I forget exactly what happened to him, but he didn't end up with a good day at all. But just continuing to prove that, he deserves to be in that level of equipment, if not better, especially for his age. So I think that, he qualified at 8th, at the Road America. So I think that he'll at least be in there, or he'll move to one of these other teams that they want to pick him off. But I'm excited to see him continue to grow. I think he's one of those guys that can be a feisty oval driver and yet again still has a lot of pace on road and street. So exciting for someone that could get in one of the top 4 team seats at some point.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Dale Coyne, which it seems that both will kind of stay put unless some of the dominoes fall above. However, completed his rookie year and showing some glimpses, but it doesn't seem like Andretti or those teams are willing to pull the trigger just yet. And I think Coyne's happy to keep a driver with a lot of potential in his sophomore year. And on the Grosjean front, he hasn't had great results, but seems to have a good relationship with the sponsors and teams that are supporting Coyne. So there's a financial benefit there.
I will never expect a Coyne off season to be boring. So as much as you talk about it like it's nothing, I never, he last year, he's like, oh, I'll have my drivers by Halloween. And we didn't know it was going to be Grosjean until about a week before St. Petersburg, it felt like. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of younger drivers and a lot of guys that are itching to get into IndyCar that could compete for that seat versus an aging Grosjean who, like you said, pleases sponsors, former F1 driver, puts together some interesting performances, seems to get on TV a lot for different reasons. But at the end of the day, not someone that someone at a higher team is going to put investment into, quite like Hauger is. So yeah, I think that second seat, it's no guarantee for him. So I have a lot to be seen with that one.
Yep. And then last we've got RLL. So Foster and Ray Hall are both on contracts, but Mick Schumacher, I think, is on a 1-year deal. So it'll ultimately depend on whether he wants to continue in IndyCar. I think from a reputational standpoint, he's bottom or second to last in points. So still not doing much for his legacy, and really hasn't shown much glimpses. I think his best shot was in Detroit, where he unfortunately they had a mechanical issue.
It was the engine. Yeah, his radio was out, and he was in the wrong engine mode because he didn't know when it was a restart. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was about the closest we've had to see him competitive, but I don't know. I'm not too excited about his performances and what his future holds here.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he's going to sell some T-shirts and he's going to get people watching, especially in Europe. So I'd love to have him. I hope he gets better. But I mean, this is someone. It's not like he's 23, So maybe give him another year. I think that I would welcome it very much so. But I'd like to see him at least get close to a top 10 versus what he's been doing lately.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, the big name teams, the last two teams, Ganassi. So Simpson and Palou are on multi-year contracts, but Scott Dixon is actually coming up to free agency, and the exclusive negotiation process actually just expired, so he's officially able to talk with other teams. Does that mean he's going somewhere else? You can be the judge of that. I would be shocked. Like I said, they operate a little different. Penske is a little more cutthroat than I think they are. And he's one of those guys. He's like Peyton Manning on the Broncos. He's bringing a lot more to the team than I'm sure we realize. And I think that as he gets later in his career, I think he'll go out on his accord. I think Chip owes him that much. We'll see. I mean, crazier things have happened, but seeing Scott Dixon in anything else but a number 9 Chip Ganassi car would be a very, very, very big surprise to me.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways, where I don't really see Dixon the type that would like to extend his career longer than he needs to, or really worry about his legacy. I think he's one of those guys that's content where he's at. He's had a great career and is looking to come off on good terms rather than maybe go a race too long and really kind of taint that wonderful legacy that he has right now. And he's still, top 10 in points. He's still qualifying well and is having good results. I think the hope is that he gets another win this year to keep that streak alive. But beyond that, I think the signs are fairly obvious that he's no longer competing for championships like he used to.
Yeah, and especially with Elio starting to get to the point where you think he might retire within 1 or 2 years, I could see him kind of taking over that Honda Indy 500 entry from Meyer Shank. If they, I could see him, running the 500 exclusive, because that's really the only thing left he has to do. He's outside of Palou, where you got 5 poles in a row and all this shit like that he's done. Dixon has really done everything you can do in an Indy car. So I think getting another Indy 500 win would really be the last thing that would keep him around. So I think that, I could see him staying another 2 years with the pace he still has now, but we'll see how that works out. But the biggest kind of question mark that's been floating around is around Joseph Newgarden. He's a little older, and his pace on road and street compared to what it was 5-6 years ago has fallen off dramatically. And, you can say that this is more of a Penske issue, but when you see someone like David Malukas competing for wins on multiple road courses this year, you start to, put pieces together and realize that Newgarden has lost a big step. And I'm sure a lot of that has come with the hybrid era, but he just lost a big step on these, and he's no longer a championship contender. He really isn't. And was it 2022, the last year that Palou hasn't won? He was finished second, I believe it was, right behind Power. And since then, he's just continued to fade, and he picks up his wins on his ovals, but when he gets on these road and streets, he's just been pedestrian.
Yeah, we talked about last year and the years prior, where I think if the series was 80% ovals, we'd have a different conversation. But the beauty of IndyCar is it is fully diverse, and if you want to win this series, you need to be strong in one of the three and at least win in the other ones. And you see Palou, I wouldn't say short ovals are his strongest suit, but he's dominant everywhere else. And when he needs to win an oval, he can do that. Where I just don't see Newgarden changing his abilities so much so that he can be as dominant on anything other than a short oval. And unless you want to be an oval only kind of guy, there isn't many opportunities long term for that.
Yeah, it's just, he's obviously going to be in the sport as long as he wants to be. But when you talk about a guy like Roger Penske that gets really impatient, and I'm not saying it's going to be this year, but there's plenty of talent, whether it's an F2 or with Kyle Collette, or in Indy next, there's guys that, that he can put into that. And you saw the pressure last year with Power and Malukas and that kind of the awkwardness that, you start putting a couple guys, young gunslingers, into those AJ Foyt cars, and I could see a lot of pressure coming on him. I don't think it's going to be this year, but I do think that it's something worth considering over time. I mean, obviously he's been so good at the 500, but he put a wheel wrong this year, and he wrecked. Yeah.
2 DNFs back to back after 2 wins.
I mean, he had a mechanical year the year before, but still. So
DNFs.
Yeah.
I think to your point, and what makes this whole silly season interesting the last 2 years is that IndyCar's got to have one of the deepest fields we've ever seen in a long, long time. I mean, to have multiple guys like Ilott and Lundqvist on the bench, that I think in most of the years where we're barely scraping the barrel to fill seats, I think there is a lot of pressure because there's so much more competition than there used to be.
Yeah, so just to kind of recap, there's 13 open seats currently since Christian Rasmussen re-signed a few weeks ago. So just a few names to throw out there. Of course, Callum Ilott, Linus Lundqvist, Connor Daly, Robert Schwartzman, Jacob Abel, former drivers, guys that have shown flashes outside of Abel, really. And then, there's plenty of F2 guys that have been thrown around. Former F2 champ, Leonardo Fornaroli. Yeah. And he's under contract with McLaren, has expressed some interest in IndyCar, very similar to Teo Porcher a few years ago. Teo Porcher, I don't know if I've heard his name thrown around at all.
Not a whole lot. I know with one of the nuances that, like, he does have an in with McLaren on those seats. I don't think Loris or Piastri are going to leave anytime soon, but he does have a separate clause where if he does get another seat in F1, it can get out of this McLaren relationship, which
a lot of guys have too.
Yeah, I don't know the likelihood of that, but there's certainly also like that avenue if it arises.
And then Luke Browning, British reserve driver for Williams F1 team in Super Formula right now. Obviously, another F2 standout. Paul Aaron, Estonian reserve driver for Alpine, finished third in F2 2 years ago. Just some names. I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm some expert on F2, but the last one is pretty funny. Is Sebastian Montoya, who has been linked with Foyt, someone who apparently hasn't been doing that good in F2, been outpaced by his teammates. But you get that Montoya name attached to you. You come to Indy, there's definitely some interest. So and then next side, I think there is a lot of talent. Nikita Johnson is someone that it looks like he's well on his way to winning the Indy Next Championship, and that's where I wonder that Dale Coyne seat, that Junco seat, there's definitely room for him to come in a very competitive field and make an impact next year. And then you can just read down the standings. The only other names that are really, I think, that are interesting, of course, Fittipaldi, Enzo is third in the standings, and then Miles Rowe, who's sixth but has done really well in the ovals, and I know Penske loves him. He would be a candidate for the Foyt seat as well. So seems like a lot of guys competing for that number 14 Foyt seat. And from there, we'll kind of dive in more to our predictions here in a few weeks, but we're going to kind of leave it at that with our just kind of dipping our toe into the silly season for 2027.
Do you want to chuck the engine charters, or just that's not relevant to 27, focus on 28?
I mean, we can mention it. I mean,
it's okay. I don't know, because we talked earlier, but like with the private engines, and then also too, Honda and Chevy getting their own charters at some point. But
yeah, there's a lot to be said about getting the 27 again, which seems to be their goal. With both and that's where I think Lundqvist might have a shot at one of those, but that's still, I'm pretty sure that's 2 years down the line when the new chassis comes in. So Well, yet to be seen. So with that, let's jump into our preview of Mid-Ohio. So Mid-Ohio this year will be on July 5th at 12:30 on Fox. And of course, our favorite July 4th race here, 90 laps up to 80 from last year. So trying to get closer to that 2 versus 3 stop strategies, because everyone has just kind of run.
I think that's old from last year.
Oh yeah, is that loud? Yeah. Last year we actually, now that I'm reading it, yeah, that's nice to see though, because last year we actually did get the winner. Dixon was on that 3 stop, and then a lot of the guys right below him were running the 4 stops. So Dixon pulled off his classic 3 stop, which is his favorite type of Indy, or sorry, 2 stop. Sorry, 2 stop versus 3 stop, three stints. His favorite type of IndyCar races. He tells us all the time. So obviously that worked. Excited to see that back again. Give us a little bit more drama with that crossover point. So 2.258 mile, 13 turn natural terrain road course. You know it. It is what it is. It's not the best track on the court on the schedule. It's not the worst. You get some narrow. You had some elevation change, some narrow corners. Racing ribbon's pretty tight. So we've been here since 1980. It's just an IndyCar race that it would be sad to never to not have. I think it maybe not be the prettiest bell at the ball, but we love it regardless. So Scott Dixon, of course, does as well, as he's won 7 of the 20 runnings here since 2007. And then on top of that, Ganassi as a whole, as we'll get into, just has their way with this course. So just you want to give us a recap from last year?
Yeah, so like Jake mentioned, Dixon opted for the 2 stop instead of the 3 stop, which Palou had, which Palou looked to be pretty solid with that strategy, but ended up making a rare mental mistake and driving off the course a little bit, but recovering fairly well, but just enough to slow him down and have Dixon catch up for the win.
Yeah, and on top of that, just a few other notes. I mean, Newgarden locked it up in turn 1, lap 1. Pretty uncharacteristic. This is when they were kind of Penske was just in doomsday scenario post Indy last year. I think all 3 of them finished in the 20s. Just unheard of results from them. Yeah, 20, 27, 26, and 23. I mean, just insane between the mechanical and the different issues they had. And then Herta was leading, and of course he had a classic Andretti pit stop. It's just that. Yeah, just looking back at that, it's so funny. Like Dixon wins with a 2-stopper fuel save. Herta has a bad pit stop, which screws him. I mean, that's so IndyCar. But anyway, just looking ahead at our winner prediction. So this is going to be the hardest one to not pick Palou on, because his average finish here is 2 since 2021.
Flat
2.
2.
I mean, the closest is Lundgaard with 6.25. So I'm just like, this is one of those races where, Ganassi, their average finish is 6.07. I mean, they're head and shoulders better than anyone else at this place, and they've continued even since 07.
Yeah, even with Dixon having almost 10 wins here, has an average finish of 7.8. So even the track, one of his more preferred tracks, it still isn't as close as Palou's.
Yeah, I have to go Dixon as my favorite pick. Of course, 7 wins here. Guy always in contention, won here last year. So it feels pretty clear. I don't think I have to speak much on it. Someone who I think it's been close. It's just, between the continual cautions on these overcuts that have screwed him, which we've never seen. Like we were talking about it before the podcast, but the announcers have talked about those for years, and we've been doing this podcast for years, and it's never bit anyone for going long until now. Like we've had 3 in the last 5 races. So anyway, I think that he pulls off this 2-stopper again. As long as Palou isn't just blistering by him like he was last year, he should have a chance.
Yeah, and I think despite Lundgaard coming from the end of the field and back up, he still qualified in the Fast 12. So that car has pace, and although being about half the length, Mid-Ohio is similar to Road America being a longer street road course. So a lot of those things are translatable, and I hope that Lundgaard continues to build that momentum into another win.
Yeah, I mean, he started second and finished third, so not a bad pick at all there last year. I think in these McLaren cars, he's really found his way on the road and street. So on the underdog side, let me take a look. It looks like MSR has been pretty decent last year. They're not super great, 13.6 average finish, but that includes some years with like Elio and Pageant had that horrible wreck here a few years ago. So they haven't necessarily had their best foot forward until last year. So maybe someone from them. I think they've been so close. I mean, with Armstrong and Rosenqvist on these road courses. If I picked anybody else, yeah, let's see. Their average finishes are 19 for Rosenqvist and Armstrong's 11. So Armstrong's had some pace here. Ericsson's been pretty strong here. Award won here a few years ago. I'll go Award. I think that like I said, McLaren's been strong and he won here 2 years ago when the hybrid first was installed and finished fifth here last year. So coming back from 14th, someone proven he can win here. So I'll go him. I don't know if that's an underdog, but
I had that was my pick as well. So thoughts are aligned. I think for my alternative pick, I probably go Ericsson. As you mentioned, he's in the top upper side of finishes, and I'm starting to get the feeling kind of similar to Will Power last year with that scorched mentality of like, I'm just going to prove him wrong anyways, and have a little extra fire to use that into a race when he knows he may not be on his way out anyways. So he's had results and he's continued to move in a positive direction throughout the mid-season. So I think there's an opportunity for him to kind of put that all together into a win.
Yeah, so that is our predictions. I, of course, went with Dixon and Award, and then Alan, you went with Lundgaard and Ericsson. So we'll see who gets some. Hopefully one of us. We picked pretty high-level finishers, so we'll see. But yeah, excited to watch this and hope you guys enjoy your July 4th weekends. I will be going to the Red Sox game against the Angels that day, so hopefully I can catch it. I'm trying to think it should be in the morning then. It's a 12:30 start so 9:30 for me over here on the West Coast, so I should be just fine. But with that, I'm Jake Langdon.
And I'm Alan Langdon.
And we'll catch you soon, race fans.